All right, guys. Thank you guys for joining us today for proactive HR and compliance planning for a strong year and finish. My name is Jerica Holton. You'll notice today that you guys are on mute. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to drop them into our questions box. You'll also receive a recap of a webinar. Just give us a few days to compile the information and we'll get that over to you guys. And I think that's it for me. I'm going to pass it over to Jason to kick us off.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Jason. I am on the point solution for our standalone tax and HR solutions with Green Shades. I've been with Green Shades for just about 2 years now. And with that, I'll pass it over to Eric.
Hello, everybody. I'm Eric Wells, the Director of Tax and Compliance here. I've been with Green Shades for a little over 8 years now. First webinar, so excited to share some knowledge with everyone.
Perfect. Thanks, Eric. So for today's webinar, we just have a few objectives that we're going to be covering just to ensure that you all have some effective strategies for a smooth and successful year-end season. So we'll be covering some techniques for updating employee information, tips for preparing for your payroll for year-end filing, along with some strategies to ready your team for the filing process as well. In the first section today, we'll be covering just some common year-end form pitfalls that we see for discrepancies in payroll data. This can be something that just to be aware of when closing out year-end, making sure that all of your payroll data is aligned for tax and compliant purposes. Again, things like even tax withholdings can lead to those significant penalties as well. So just something to be mindful of. And then next we have overlooking employee payments. Similar to the payroll data side, when paying out employees, making sure that everything is accounted for, specifically for non-employee payments. So if you're paying out contractors come year end, making sure that that data is correct for any 1099 filings you may have. All right, and I'll pass it back over to Eric.
So gonna talk a little bit more about some of these topics, kind of dive a little bit deeper into them. So updating that employee information, work with your employees to ensure their information is up to date. Basically, we're gonna have a couple common themes throughout this. One of the biggest one is start early. You'd want to, as early as possible, as often as possible, make sure that employee information is up to date. The good news is once you do, assuming you're using this for year end, once you do get into YEF, start loading that information, we will do some basic validation and call out some very, obvious things, hey, this employee doesn't have a state listed, things like that. But some of the things that we just can't catch for, you want to get in early, maybe somebody has moved, maybe somebody has had a name change. Some things like that are a little bit hard for us to catch. So it's good to just kind of be proactive with that. So conduct an audit of your employee information and a couple other pieces here. So one thing we do recommend is that you start thinking about those distribution preferences early on. So what I mean by that is, W-2s and 1095s, you have to get those out to employees. And, if you kind of think about this early, you can try to get employee consent to receive those electronically. That way you have a lot less of a burden to have those distributions on yourself or to do print and mail, which can be a little bit more costly sometimes. So trying to get in those preferences early and just to try to plan if you are planning on doing print and mail, because maybe that's easier for you. It's easier to kind of guarantee that compliance through that. If you set up that option early, you're going to go with it. Then hopefully you can get into Green Shades and maybe be one of the earlier clients that will do that and take advantage of some of our price incentives for doing that early on versus, kind of near the end of the deadline or last minute. So again, check for that missing employee data. Just make sure everything that is required is fill out, name, address, social. You want to check on dependents. If you do have that dependent information for those 1099s, you want to make sure that dependent information is also filled out. And then we get to verifying the SSN and TIN. I'm going to talk about that just a little bit more in another slide. But yes, we definitely encourage you to verify those SSNs and TINs. That is a key thing that will cause these to get rejected, or for you to have to send out new W-2s, 1095s, and different, or the 1099 forms. Reviewing the employee address, we've been through that a few times. You do want to make sure that that address is as much as possible not a PO box. There are some forms that just absolutely will reject if we try to send a PO box for that. So you really want to have the employee's actual address, and enable that self-service access. So you know, if you're using Green Shades products, you want to enable that self-service so employees themselves can take some of the burden on. Often employees are very naturally inclined to do that. Like, hey, I'm moving, I need to update my address. And if you give them the ability to go in themselves and update that information, that's great. A little bit of burden off of you. You can get done early. But again, you do want to try to take some time and double check that as much as possible. So the incorrect address, just another kind of note on that is, if you depend on the postal service for your distribution of W-2s, 1099s, 1095Cs, it is crucial for that information to be correct. The post office will not forward federal tax documents. So even if an employee is moved and they put in for their mail to get forward, those tax documents may not get forwarded. So you want to make sure that you have that information as up to date as possible. And I said I'd dive a little bit deeper on the SSN and TIN verification. SSN verification is going to be for your employee forms. So W-2s, 1095s, that TIN is your vendor verification. That still could be a person's social security number, but whenever it does go through, if it's on a 1099 form, even if it is a person and you're using a social, it is still considered a TIN, and it's a separate verification process for that. So each SSN on tax return should match exactly as printed on their social security card. That's very important because sometimes you'll have people that will have a name slightly different on different forms of identification. I don't know about maybe driver's license or not, but I know I've seen someone recently that said they had a CDL license that had a name that was slightly different than their actual name on their social security card. And they tried to give their CDL as verification to their employer. And then when we went to do the SSN verification, that got flagged as a bad match, because the SSA is going to verify against the name exactly as it is on that social security card. You want to ensure that all names of all taxpayers and dependents on the return match. The government now takes longer for those verifications, both the SSN and TINs. This was prevalent last year. Many of you that were with us last year probably noticed this, as in years past, we were a little bit faster. It was kind of maybe like a 24-hour turnaround on those verifications. Now it is a minimum 2-day and sometimes 3 days, business days, for the verifications. And that's just a change on how the government allows us to do those verifications for free. So we're trying to keep that free for our clients. It does take just a little bit longer. Again, that is why we highly encourage you, as soon as you can, as soon as you have that data uploaded to YEF, go ahead and do those verifications. Just one more piece on that. Let's say you have 1,000 employees, you do verifications, we say, great, there was 100 of them that don't match. You're going to go through and try to fix those 100. You still want to submit another batch of those 100 to ensure that your changes do match up and are verified. And then that will be another 2 to 3 business days. So again, big emphasis, get in early, take advantage of that. Delays in those verifications can lead to late filings, potential penalties, or having to submit corrections, which again is just a bit of a burden, takes some time. So you want to get that in as early as possible. I'm going to
Perfect.
hand
Thanks.
this back over to Jason.
Thanks, Eric. And the next section, we'll take a look at, just performing regular payroll audits, just some helpful tips and tricks for year end as well. So diving in here, conducting those regular payroll audits, it's going to be essential as you prepare for year end processing. It's going to be important that you start by matching your payroll records with any financial accounts you may have to identify and correct those discrepancies. This step is also crucial to ensure that all data is aligned so that when it comes to year end, things like bonuses, final payments, or other payroll activities are accounted for as well. Next, it's going to be important to ensure all final payments are made as well. So that could include things like outstanding wages, unused vacation time, severance pay. This will help not only ensure that employees receive what they're owed, but it also helps to maintain those accurate records for tax and compliance purposes. And then verify any deductions or contributions. So ensuring that all deductions and contributions like taxes, benefits, retirement plans are accounted for. And verifying those will also help just, another way to prevent any errors when it comes to year-end filing. And then as mentioned previously, again, just ensuring that that payroll data is accurate and up to date. So whether, each pay run that you do run, you're giving it a quick audit, reviewing that information to make sure it matches up. So when it comes time for year end, you have all that information up to date and you won't have to, kind of comb back through data to see where an error may have occurred. And then for the federal 941 return, that's going to be the quarterly payroll tax return. For those of you who are looking to file W-2s for this year, it's going to play a pretty pivotal role for W-2 filing. On the 941, the totals should match your cumulative totals of all W-2s issued at year end. So again, it's critical making sure that that information is correct on your 941 so that you have a smooth transition for filing W-2s. And by utilizing a tax solution like GreenShades, we give clients the ability to automate that 941 process. We'll generate the 941 return. If there's any errors or warnings within that tax return, we will notify clients, give them the ability to make those corrections directly within GreenShades before ultimately submitting that return. So just, another way where compliance is at the core of GreenShades. We won't let you submit a form if it's not compliant. So it just helps, better prepare your team for those quarterly filings as well. All right, and I'll pass it right back to Eric.
Thanks, Jason. So we're going to talk a little bit about reviewing classifications and payments. We want to ensure that employees are entered correctly and all payments are issued. So kind of the big takes on this, some of it may be obvious, but I definitely think it's just worth a slide here and a little talk about is, just kind of reminder, almost all income is taxable. It's very important, no matter how small it is, to record that data and get it into us. Most income should be reported. So, again, I would highly recommend that you leverage GreenShades to help with that. Some of you may know that there are some cases, especially with like 1099s, where if you do not reach a threshold of, say, $600, you do not have to submit that 1099. We highly encourage that you still give GreenShades all of that data, and that is one of the options that we have. Once you load a 1099, you have an option to remove anything that is below the threshold. One of the reasons why we should still recommend getting that data to us is We have some cases, for instance, where a vendor was kind of listed as two different, maybe slightly different names, but it was truly the same vendor, the same EIN. And you know, two different records that said, oh yeah, you know, we had this one for 400, this one for 300, so both of them were below the threshold, but really that was one vendor that got paid 700 and was above the threshold. So once we did find that issue, it was very easy since we had the data already in our system to fix that quickly versus having to import new data. So just one example of it's good to get it all in, let Green Shades help you with, hey, you know, we know that these maybe are below threshold. We don't have to report them. You don't have to distribute those. We'll help you out with that as much as possible. And then just a reminder that mismatches in income can lead to late issues. It can also lead to flags by the IRS. You know, obviously, if you are submitting income for somebody and you're saying that you paid them X and then they submit something, you know, for the personal and they say they submitted Y and those two don't match, you know, that's almost an automatic red flag. Someone's off, the information is missing, can lead to audits. And then steps for filing W-2s and 1099 forms. This screen on the right is basically the main screen for YEF for W-2s. Gonna look almost identical for W-2s and 1099s. Very slight differences there. So importing data via our integrations, if you're already using Green Shades, and you want to get that W-2 data over, that 1095 data over, we have the Sync Portal connector, some generic SQL integrations that'll work with your accounting packages. Or we have the Excel templates, and this is how anybody who's coming on Green Shades just to use this year-end product, that is how you're going to be importing your data through those Excel templates. Those Excel templates are also how you're going to import if you're utilizing us for your 1099 forms. One little nugget of information or helpful hint on those, an issue that we commonly see on those Excel imports, especially for 1099s, is we have a field called vendor name 1 and vendor name 2. And many of you know that your vendors often are just people. And so a lot of people make the mistake of saying, oh, vendor name 1 and 2, I can just replace with first name, last name. That's not true on a 1099 form. Vendor name 1 is going to be someone's full name. Vendor name 1 is company name. So again, if it's an individual person, their whole name is their company name. And vendor name 2 really is reserved for doing business as. So the problem comes if you use vendor name 1 and 2 as first name, last name, and we go to do that TIN verification, we're only going to be sending over that person's first name and saying, oh, this SSN TIN should match with this person's first name, and the IRS is going to want to see first name and last name, so they're going to reject that as a bad match. So that's a common issue we have. We do have some little helpful notes in the Excel to help guide you through that, but again, it's just kind of human nature to see something and go, oh, I know what that means. I'm gonna fill it out this way. So helpful hint there. You want to make sure the company setup the company setup is right, company information is right. Again, kind of obvious, but just calling things out here. Employee vendor, the verification, been through that a whole bunch. Obviously, highly encourage that. Take advantage of it, get in early. Resolve the areas that may cause rejections, as you'll see on the screenshot there. What number 3 is resolve those warnings on your forms. So that's where you're going to see some of those things that Green Shades can easily spot and say, oh, by the way, you know, we can see that this employee has a very obvious bad SSN. Like even before verifying 9999999 is a bad SSN, we'll catch that. Oh, this employee doesn't have state. You have to have a state filled in or a city. So some of those kind of very obvious things that we'll check and you can get ahead of. Same thing with verifying totals. You want to get in early and make sure those totals are matching. That's like the easiest way to load your data, immediately look at the totals and go, oh, this doesn't match my payroll system. Obviously, I'm missing some data, or maybe it's too much and I've duplicated some data. It's a very easy way to catch some of those kind of bigger import issues. Employee management, this is going to be on the W-2s. This is where you can set up some of those preferences for your employees to be able to view their W-2 on Green Employee. So that electronic distribution of those, again, you want to get that in early to try to get as many employees to view those forms electronically. That way you have less of a burden on other forms of distribution. And then the actual form distribution itself. Again, come in with a plan, know that you're going to print mail, know that you're going to download a batch and distribute it yourself. And definitely be aware as we post those timelines and those pay schedules or fee schedules for print and mail. Make sure you're aware of, hey, we want to try to get all of our print and mail done by this date to take advantage of some early pricing with Green Shades.
Perfect. Thanks, Eric. Just to kind of wrap up, we just have a few additional slides here. So on this slide, I like to think of Green Shades as, a solution where we can support our clients from hire to retire. So whether clients are using us on the HR side for electronic onboarding, time management, benefit administration, or on the tax and compliance side, or even the full in-house payroll platform, Green Shades solutions are, tools in which clients can leverage with their internal processes and really scale along with your organization to meet your needs. And then just some of the key takeaways for today. Again, it's going to be important to just evaluate your needs, understand your filing requirements, and if you're not using Green Shades today, maybe consider a year-end filing solution like Green Shades to help streamline some of your internal processes, ensure compliance, and help guarantee those timely submissions as well. Again, initiate best practices where you can. So whether that's implementing a well-defined payroll policy or completing a regular audit for your employee information, just to take that proactive approach when it comes time to file at the end of the year. And then finally, utilize technology where you can, whether you're using tax, HR, payroll with Green Shades. We're here to help streamline the process as much as we can to reduce any errors and help increase automation and compliance for your organization. So just as the final wrap up here today, you'll see some of our contact information on this screen. If you have questions in regard to year-end filing, if you're looking for a quote, feel free to reach out to the sales@GreenShades email address. Most likely it'll be myself working with you all, and it's never too early to start again. I'm currently right now we're fielding client questions or setting them up with quotes just to get them in the early stage of preparation for year end. So let us know if you have any questions, but otherwise we definitely appreciate everyone joining here today.